The package at 4:04, dead end. Most people think being a night shift delivery driver is just about fighting sleep and dodging potholes. But when the rain starts coming down in sheets, the world looks different. You start seeing things on the edge of your headlights that don't belong. And sometimes you're asked to deliver to places that aren't on any map. I used to love the solitude of the rainy graveyard shift, but after one particular drop-off in the hills, I realized that some doors are better left knocked on by someone else. The rain was a relentless drumming force against the roof of my beat-up delivery van, turning the windshield into a blurred watercolor of gray and black. It was 3:15 a.m., and I was on my final leg of a shift that had already lasted 10 hours. The GPS was struggling, flickering in and out as I wound my way up a narrow, unpaved road that seemed to lead into the very heart of the forest. My phone buzzed on the dashboard, a Priority Express notification for a package that had been rerouted 3 times. The delivery address was simply listed as The Foundation at the end of Blackwood Lane. I'd lived in this county my whole life, and I'd never heard of it. I finally reached a set of rusted iron gates that stood ajar, half hidden by overgrown weeping willows that shivered in the wind. Beyond them sat a sprawling Victorian-era house that looked like it hadn't seen a coat of paint since the Great Depression. There were no lights in the windows, save for a faint rhythmic pulsing of green light from a basement window. I hopped out of the van, the mud instantly soaking through my sneakers, and grabbed the small, unusually heavy box from the back. As I stepped onto the porch, the wood groaned under my weight, a sound that seemed to echo far too long inside the house. I raised my hand to knock, but before my knuckles could hit the wood, the heavy oak door creaked open an inch on its own. A smell hit me then. Not the smell of an old house, but something sharp and chemical, like formaldehyde mixed with ozone. "Hello? Delivery?" I called out, my voice trembling. From the darkness of the hallway, a soft, wet, slithering sound began to approach the door. Was I really supposed to leave this package? Or was the open door an invitation to something I wasn't prepared to meet? I stood there on the porch for a heartbeat, the rain lashing at my back, soaking through my thin company windbreaker. The logical part of my brain told me to drop the package right there on the welcome mat, snap the confirmation photo, and sprint back to the safety of my van. But the delivery instructions were specific. Hand delivery only. Do not leave unattended. If I messed this up, I'd lose the bonus that was the only thing keeping my rent paid this month. "Hello?" I tried again, louder this time. The slithering sound stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was heavy, amplified by the dull roar of the storm outside. I pushed the door open just a few more inches, enough for the beam of my flashlight to cut through the gloom of the foyer. The interior was stripped bare. No furniture, no carpet, just dark hardwood floors that glistened with a layer of moisture. The walls were covered in what looked like damp peeling wallpaper, but as I moved my light, I realized the patterns were actually thousands of tiny handwritten numbers covering every square inch of the plaster. They were scrawled in a frantic, overlapping mess. The slithering started again, coming from the top of the grand staircase. I tilted my light upward. At first, I thought I was looking at a person draped in a gray tarp, but as the shape moved into the light, I realized it was a man, or it had been once. He was wearing an old-fashioned suit that was far too large for his gaunt frame, and his skin had the gray, waxy sheen of someone who hadn't seen sunlight in decades. He wasn't walking down the stairs. He was sliding, his body undulating in a way that suggested he had no bones left in his legs. "The package," he rasped. It wasn't a voice so much as the sound of air escaping a punctured tire. I held the box out, my hands shaking so violently I nearly dropped it. I just need a signature, sir, or a name." The man reached the bottom of the stairs. Up close, I could see that his eyes were filmed over with a thick, milky cataract, yet he seemed to see me perfectly. He didn't reach for a pen. He reached for the box. His fingers were impossibly long. The skin stretched so tight over the bone that it looked like it would snap. When his hand brushed mine, it was freezing, colder than the rain outside, a dead, soul-sucking cold that made my entire arm go numb. He took the package and held it to his ear, tilting his head. From inside the box, I heard a faint, frantic ticking, like a heart beating at 3 times the normal speed. A look of profound relief washed over his hollowed-out face. "Just in time," he whispered. "The rain. It brings the thirst." He turned back toward the stairs, the package clutched to his chest. As he moved, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Behind him, trailing from beneath his oversized suit, was a long, thin cord, like an umbilical cord, that stretched back into the darkness of the upper floor. It was pulsing with that same sickly green light I'd seen in the basement window. "Wait, I need a name for the log," I called out, though every fiber of my being was screaming at me to run. He stopped on the 3rd step and looked back over his shoulder. His jaw dropped open, further than a human jaw should go, revealing a mouth filled with nothing but smooth, black gums. "Tell them the transition is nearly complete. Tell them the rain has washed the bridge away." Suddenly, the green light from the basement flared into a blinding emerald glare, and a low-frequency hum vibrated through the floorboards, so intense it made my teeth ache. The man began to shriek, a high-pitched, mechanical sound that tore through the noise of the storm. I didn't wait for anything else. I turned and dove off the porch, landing hard in the mud. I scrambled into my van, fumbled the keys into the ignition, and floored it. I didn't even look in the rearview mirror until I was 3 miles down the road and back on the paved highway. The next morning, I tried to look up the address to report the unusual encounter to my supervisor. The GPS logs for my van showed that for 45 minutes between 3:15 and 4 a.m., I had been parked in the middle of a dense, swampy field where no house had stood for over 50 years. There was no Blackwood Lane. There was no foundation. But when I checked my delivery app to see the status of the order, it was marked as completed. Under the received by section, there wasn't a name. There was just a single, digitized image of a thumbprint. But it wasn't a human thumbprint. The ridges formed a perfect, concentric circle, like the eye of a storm. I handed in my keys that afternoon. I still do deliveries, but I only work the day shift now, and on rainy nights. I stay inside, lock the doors, and never ever answer a knock if I'm not expecting company. Because I know now that some things in the rain aren't looking for mail. They're looking for a way to stay connected to a world that moved on without them.